Tonight, I'm very happy to have Julie with me. She is one of the co-authors of The Age of Invasions and made my favorite saga book, The Age of Invasions. So thank you very much for joining me tonight. And maybe let's start off with getting to know you a little bit. So who are you and how did you get into war games?
So hi, and thank you for inviting me on your channel. And it's a real pleasure to know that you appreciate you like our supplement. So I'm Julie, and I'm French. I'm French, and I began wargaming when I was 15, and I never quit since this time. I've begun with Confrontation, a French game, and Warhammer Fantasy Battle. And some years later, I discovered historical wargaming with Warhammer and Giant Battle. So Warhammer, but with historical miniatures.
And then somehow you came to Saga through what? How did you get into to Saga specifically then?
For Saga, so we met the people of the Studio Tomahawk when it was not yet the studio. They played Warhammer and Giant Battle too. So we met them during tournaments and conventions. And when Saga was released, we tried the game and we immediately liked it. So we made the first tournaments in France, and every year we made 2 or 3 troubles to play against other players. So it was a real blast for us.
All right, great. And so you co-authored the Aetius and Arthur supplement in version 1. So this came out right at the end of version 1.
When we were finishing the tests, the writing of the supplements, and when we were in the final phases of the supplement, Alex from the studio told us, "Okay, I will release a second version of the game." Okay, but what do we do with our supplement? So we didn't know all the rules when the supplement was released. We didn't know the new rules of the version 2. We just knew that warlords would generate 1 saga dice, and that melee reaction would disappear. So we made as we could, but we couldn't plan everything that would change at the end.
Yeah, so for me, I love the time period. It's one of my kind of favorite historical periods, and I was really glad to see this supplement come out. What brought you, or what was your inspiration for this particular age?
So it's a period we didn't know much when we began to work on the supplement, but we discovered it with great pleasure, and we learned many things during the development. And at first, when Alex told us to write a supplement for him if we wanted, the idea was to make an adaptation of the Cornwell books, The Winter King.
The Bernard Cornwell.
Yes.
Okay,
that's
yeah.
it. So the project didn't succeed because there was a problem for the rights and so on. But we kept some elements of the books for the development of the battle boards. For example, the Britons, we were really inspired by the battle scenes described in the books, where the characters, the principal characters, are among their troops in the middle of the battle, and they lead them, they cheer them, and So that's why we have a battle board with the warlord, where the warlord is a central piece of your army.
Okay, that makes sense, and that explains the galvanized rule for all the people following at home. So I guess from that book, you, if I remember, it's been a few years since I read the series, but it was mostly the Britons, the Saxons, and maybe the Irish.
Yeah. Irish, there were some mercenaries, the Black Shields.
Oh yes, okay, and then the Franks as well, I think, if I remember correctly. Okay, so
the second book, I think, was the end of the first. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think all the Bernard Cornwell books for me are all become very similar in the end. All his series become very similar. But so it's good to know the historical inspiration. It makes sense as well with the game being called Saga, with the heroic warlords taking charge of your warband. And so you already said how you dealt with kind of the change from version 1 to version 2. But why did you choose those first 6 factions for Aetius and Arthur?
Because we had to choose among the many people existing in this era. We picked the most important factions from our point of view. So for Great Britain, Britons, Saxon and Picts seemed obvious. And we chose to make the Old Friends, New Enemies chapter to introduce other factions we couldn't write, but it was a way to integrate them with the Viking battle boards. For the faction of Great Britain, I don't know if another choices would have been appropriate. Irish, for example, were not in the center of the island. It was more side character. And for Western Europe, so we chose Romans because Romans.
You have to have the Romans.
Explain this.
Yeah.
We chose Goth because probably because we are French and from southern France, where Goths had a huge kingdom. And yes, we liked Goth. That's all.
Okay, fair enough.
And because there was a terrifying enemy of the period.
I was very interested in kind of picking your brain and understanding how you sit down and you start making a battle board for a specific faction. Can you walk us through the steps or the method, if there is any?
So there is no magical recipe, sadly, or hopefully, I don't know. It really depends of the faction. For some factions, we had a clear idea. So the Briton, as I said. For the Romans, we quickly get the impetus mechanism. The idea was to have an army, not unlike the Imperial Roman, who was a steady army. We wanted an army who couldn't attack every turn. You had to attack, then to rest, attack, rest, to show that the Roman army was not as powerful as before. For Goths, for example, so it's not linked to a historical aspect of the Goth people. It's more we wanted to play with fatigue, and we thought it was logical to give it to Goth because it's barbarian faction, so people tend to believe that barbarians charge and charge and charge and don't do anything else. So why not exhausting them and give them playing with fatigue?
Yeah, definitely. And so, which faction are you the most proud of? Which one do you think is the pinnacle of Saga, uh, the Saga experience?
So I really like hunts particularly because it's fun. You have horses everywhere. You switch fatigue, you give fatigue, you shoot, you charge. I really like aggressive and mobile factions, so I think it's the most fun from my point of view.
All right,
Uh,
I'm glad. I also have I think Huns are top. The second one for me. I think Goths are number one for me at the moment. Um, but I think the matchup between the two should be interesting as well.
yeah,
So I was wondering if
weird.
yeah if you were to add another faction, if you had no restrictions, what would you add?
Uh, we wanted to add the elements, sorry, without H. We ever had a concept, but we didn't have the time to develop it. So I hope one day we will make a battle board, a final battle board for them and publish it. We will see.
Maybe one like the Skraelings available on
Yeah.
the website. I would 100% support this initiative, Julie. So I'm looking forward to seeing it soon. But
Soon I don't know. I have many work to do.
um, but so which is your favorite mechanic from Aetius and Arthur?
Mechanic?
Your battle board interaction.
Oh, yeah. Mm, I quite like romance with the impetus mechanic because it's an idea I had. It was not my husband. Yes, because I wrote the supplement with my husband, and Alex from the studio Tomahawk wrote the Limes campaign.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, the impetus mechanic, I like it. I don't know if it works very well in every game, but I find it cool.
I haven't had the chance to play the new Roman board yet, but I enjoy the impetus in the first version. I thought it gave good rhythm to the board as well, and it's so I'm looking forward to trying it now as well. So the book has been out now for since October. Um, how have you found the reception, or do you get a lot of feedback in terms of the reception, and how do you perceive that?
So generally, I read conversations, I watch the YouTube videos to see what people think about our supplement. People seems to be quite happy of it. I think the fact to add two factions make it less redundant with the first version. Even if some battle boss have not really changed, others are modified but have the same spirit. So people seems to be satisfied. Perhaps some faction didn't change enough. I don't know. We will see in the future. And I'm waiting tournament results and feedback to see how they interact between each other and against other supplements for tournaments which mix factions.
Yeah, I think well, from my side, I'm very positive about it, and I'm maybe a little bit of a evangelist about Age of Invasions to my group as well, and I've bought some extra copies, which I encourage people to start warbands with. Um, so it's certainly for me it's a big hit, but maybe looking back, are there any things that you would have changed now that it's kind of out? I know whenever I publish something, I always find a typo or something I wish I'd I'd done or thought about beforehand. So, is there anything you would have changed looking back these few months?
For the moment, I don't really know because we are working on another supplement. So when Age of Invasion was released, our brain was already in the future, so it's hard for us to see back in the past and say, oh, we could have put that and that and that and changed that. Our brain has completely omitted for the moment Age of Invasion, but I've noticed some mistakes we made, some rules we didn't write clearly. For example, the bishop, I think, doesn't have timing for his ability.
Do you want to give people an idea of when the timing of his ability needs to happen? Or maybe
the idea was to activate it in orders phase, your orders phase. But we will make a FAQ with the answer for everyone.
With the official answer. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But I think it's from my side. I think like it's easy to criticize if you're if you see the book and you have time to read through it and digest it and play a few games. I think, but overall, I'm incredibly happy with the result, especially with the addition of the new old friend, new enemies to bring it up to kind of a 12 factions that are standalone in a universe, and I think that's the perfect number of factions that you can play. You can keep playing, and it remains really really fresh.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed was that as the books get released, more and more equipment options are being added. So, for example, Age of Hannibal had the elephant, the sarissas, etc. Age of Invasion, before this, it already had the chariot. I think that was the first time a chariot was actually included in Saga. It also had the Manuballista, and now you've added in cataphracts, and of course the elephants as well. So is this a conscious change from a conscious design change from earlier books?
Yes, I think it's a natural evolution because we saw that equipment could be an interesting addition to supplements. For example, for cataphracts, as we have regrouped Eastern and Western Romans, we wanted to keep Aetius as a character and introduce, I don't remember his name, Belisarius.
Okay, yeah.
For the Eastern Romans. So cataphracts would no longer be a legend of the invasions. So we had to place them in the supplements, but with another rules. And we thought that the cataphract rules could be an interesting addition and give the option to more factions. So the fact that an equipment gives you a bonus and a malus keeps the balance.
Yeah, I think the balance is one of the key strengths from Saga as well, because, for example, with javelins, you gain some aggression in terms of the +1 to hit, but then you become very very soft defensively. And I think the same thing with the movement on the cataphracts. For me, it's definitely not a no-brainer to only take cataphracts. And so I think it's good that you have specific situations where it is better and some situations where you're better off not taking it as well. So I think the balance is pretty good. So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but for some of the factions, they've stayed relatively the same. So the Britons and the Saxons, I think, have largely remained very similar. And then others like the Huns and the Goths have changed significantly. I guess the Goths mostly because the interaction with fatigue was so different from version 1.
Yes.
how did you go about identifying kind of the new play style and the new what you thought needed to be fixed?
Before when the second version was released, we tried to make some games with Battleboard from Aesius and Archer, but with the new rules. So we had the time to see what was going well and what was completely broken. And we tried to fix that in the new Battleboard. For Goth, we had made some games against Romans, and it was not interesting at all. So we took the Goth Battleboard and we nearly rewrite everything to see what was working, what we had to remove, what solutions did we have to correct some abilities that were no longer functioning.
Regarding the changes and the notable differences compared to the other books, I think the one thing that I noticed was the old friends and new enemies section was a lot bigger and a lot more extended compared to other ages. So there's legendary options included. There's a lot of more text as well. I'm really glad. I tend to be someone who loves making the really niche war bands like the Cumans or the Pagan Raiders and those kind of factions, which I don't see anyone else play. I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit of a like a hipster in that aspect, where I want to play what other people don't play. So, how come you decided to expand that section, and kind of what were your inspirations there as well?
In the first version, we were the first supplement to introduce this kind of chapter. The idea was to add factions in a supplement which only had 6 factions, the first one, and to take existing battle boards and introduce them in the supplement, so it was less work for us. And it is a possibility for people to place their army in another supplement. So less painting and more, they can reuse the same miniatures and in different supplements. When we did it, we were highly motivated. So we thought, okay, let's take legendary characters and so on. And for the next supplements, we didn't write. For example, for Age of Vikings, Alex, the author, told us that from his point of view, legendary heroes for these factions were not necessary. So
Okay.
I think it's yes, it's a question of motivation, and we were inspired, so we did it, and
Yeah,
we were to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I love the inclusion of the Vandals as well. I think that was a really good. I think the Carolingian board is pretty good to begin with, and then with the extra options becomes, I think it will be very, very powerful to play and very very interesting to play. And also the way you use the Welsh board in terms of having just changing the equipment options, one with being purely mounted and one being I think purely on foot.
Yes.
And that way it's going to be a very interesting different way to play the kind of a more on foot but less or less squishy Welsh faction. Did you do a lot of playtesting for these new ways of playing them, or was it one or I don't know how the playtesting goes, so feel free to explain that part as well.
For the old friends, new enemies, sadly, we don't have the time to really play test them as we do for the battle bots. So we try things. I don't think these factions are particularly unbalanced compared to the battle bots or the supplement, because as we said earlier, equipment options generally have a bonus and a malus. So for me, the balance is respected. For the beta test in general, it has evolved along the years. We play test in small groups of people who know each other. So for Age of Invasions, as I have the chance to play with my husband, we can play at home regularly, and we meet other groups of players in France. So it can be in Paris, in Strasbourg, and we make one or two beta test sessions during a weekend each year. And between these sessions, we try to write new battle boards to correct the other ones, etc., etc. And generally, these kind of weekends are enough to really have a good result. And as we say often in our groups of testers, when the book is released, you have more game of the supplements in 1 week than you have made during 2 or 3 years. So we must accept that it will never be perfect.
Also, one of the differences in Age of Invasions is the inclusion of the scenarios, and it was both in version 1 and the updated ones in the new book as well. Some of the ones like Battle Around the Campfire is one of, I think, the people always love playing it since it's such an interesting way of setting up a game. Are you planning on releasing a Book of Battles #2 or any more scenarios that we can expect?
For my part, I've not planned scenarios for the moment. I think Alex has planned a second book of battle, but I don't know when it will be released. So it will be released. So I can give you a strong answer and give you a date and anything else.
Okay, no, but it's good to hear that that it's maybe in the works in the future at some point.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear. I was also wondering, which factions did you go through and you dropped the ideas, and which ones didn't make the final cut?
So factions we wanted to include, but we didn't make it.
Yes.
Right? Okay. At first, for the first version, we wanted to make 8 factions and may introduce Scotty, so the Irish Raiders. But we didn't find any concept, so we dropped it out. Yes, and so the elements are, as I told you, were in the pipelines, but we couldn't achieve the battle bots. Yes, and I think we can add many other factions. Vandas could have been a battle bot. We could have make more opponents for the Sassanids, for example, the first Muslims. We could have make world Europe.
Yeah, I guess the options are endless.
Yeah.
and probably even some people that we haven't even heard of. But I think the addition of the Sassanids also opens up that whole new the Eastern Roman front as well. I think it gives people who like elephants a very good reason to pick up this book as well. I think maybe we move away a little bit from Age of Invasions, and so I've noticed that you are credited as well as being one of the painters in the book, and also see that sometimes on Facebook you post some really beautifully painted miniatures as well. So can you tell us which figures are yours?
So there was more photos of my miniatures in the first book. In Age of Invasion, I think there is only one picture, and it's Goth painted by my husband. It's in page 93.
Okay, I will look at that. I don't know that one by heart, unfortunately, but I will check that one out later. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on the Age of Invasion. I have one maybe more speculative question. So a few, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, someone shared a photo of some playtesting going on with the 100 Years' War. Is there anything you can share about that at this early stage?
So it's a supplement we write with my husband and Alex as Age of Invasions. So it won't be released this year because we have many work to do. But it will have more factions than Age of Invasions. It will be more like Age of Vikings or Crusades.
Okay. And does it cover the entire 100 Years' War, or have you focused in on a specific campaign or time period?
No, it will be a kind of end of Middle Age supplement to cover a maximum of factions and.
Okay, so it would be more European-wide instead of just the 100 Years' War. Ah, okay.
Western Europe again.
Are you able to share maybe which factions will be included, or is it still too early?
I think there will be French and English.
Okay, this is surprising. Spoiler alert for the. But that's all the questions I have for you tonight. Thank you very much, Julie. It was lovely talking to you, and thank you for making the time to answer these questions. And hopefully I will talk to you soon when the Age of Jeanne d'Arc, as I'm calling it, not official name, is released.
Okay, thank you for inviting me once again. It was a good interview.
Thank you.